Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Wade. It is June 1st. Not sure if this is going up today or tomorrow. Just got back from a nice vacation. As I said on the video I just did on Mark Driscoll, heresy never sleeps. So there was a couple of items I wanted to address. This article that we're going to be going over came across my news feed while I was away. Immediately bookmarked it so I could address it now. The article is about a month old, so May 9th is when it came out, 3 weeks old. And this kind of sums up where we're at with the Dr. Michael Brown fiasco. I did 5 videos covering his absurd interview with Heather Shot. But that's a lot to pour through, so maybe this will serve more as a summary. I also thought it was important because this is a secular news station that's reporting the local news of Mercy Culture Church, which is in Texas. You see the headline, and it says the Mercy Culture backs church elder facing dueling reports on sexual misconduct allegations. Now, they're not really dueling reports. Keep that in mind. There's only one report. That's the Firefly investigation. The other thing was a sham set up by Dr. Brown's board to basically refute the thing that they paid for, which was the Firefly investigation. Dr. Brown claimed that investigation cost him $40,000. So I don't know who in their right mind pays $40,000 to do an investigation and then pays nothing to 4 other people to basically disagree with what you just paid for the $40,000. None of that makes any sense. So again, the long and the short of this is, and it's not really short, but Dr. Michael Brown is a renowned theologian, apologist, charismaniacal leader, gatekeeper of the NAR for the last 50 plus years. Author of a ridiculous amount of books. One of the leaders in the Brownsville demonic outpouring, which then he built his ministry upon the bones of that horrifically false revival. At the time, the church that had this revival split. One side was Dr. Brown, one side was other people. And he had started a ministry, Line of Fire ministry. He was a renowned elder, and he was building his empire based on a holiness of ministry. We've covered this before, where somebody has been quoted as saying his preaching would even advise the young female students on what kind of panties they would be allowed to wear. Then it turns out at the same time, around this time, 2001, 2002, Dr. Brown engaged in 2 completely inappropriate relationships. One was with a 19-year-old, 20-year-old employee, as well as a sheep, where he engaged in activities that can only be professionally described as grooming. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter if Dr. Brown has any recollection of ever having a grooming thought in his head. The behaviors themselves are the only thing that matters when it comes to that description. So I'm not, even inferring causality, or malice of forethought. I'm just saying that when you have a 19 to 20-year-old, and you're in your mid-40s, and you're the statesman, you're the elder, you're the authority, spiritual authority, and their employer, you probably should not allow them to sit in your lap. You should not be kissing them on the forehead, and then moving gently down to kiss them on the lips, and then playfully patting them on their behind. When people bring Sarah up, that was her name, Sarah Monk, that is her name. Dr. Brown's like, well, she was just like a daughter to me. Well, I'm pretty sure that if a lot of that behavior was engaged by a 40-some-odd-year-old man with a 19-year-old daughter, there could be an investigation into that as well. And in the interview with Heather Shot, they all tried to play it off like this is just normal church culture. I don't know what churches y'all growing up in, but I do not recall any churches where the middle-aged male pastor was playfully smacking on the bottom a 19-year-old girl when she walked by. The other relationship, which seems to get downplayed, I don't get why, was with a woman of the same age bracket, but who was married to somebody else, and Dr. Brown was obviously married himself, and they engaged in what's being described as an inappropriate relationship, but let's just, call a spade a spade. He was having phone sex with her, according to the woman's husband, who's still alive. The woman has since passed. Inappropriate sexual content in emails and in phone calls. Dr. Brown tried to meet with her twice. We're all adults here. Pretty sure he was not meeting with her to go over the catechism. She refused, is the story. So Dr. Brown appears to want a lot of credit for not engaging in physical adultery, but in both of these instances, the woman stopped the action. Sarah's case, she left town, said their faith was shipwrecked for 10 years before she started realizing that she's the victim as a 19-year-old. Then the other woman, the married woman, simply said no, refused to meet with him. And then her husband realized something was up, got her to admit it. Then he confronted Brown. He said it was like pulling teeth to get him to admit anything before he finally confessed at what he was doing. So a lot of these allegations were brought up over the years, the 25 years, and at each turn, Brown deflected and tried to protect his ministry. When they became back into more public light in 2024, the Line of Fire Ministry, their board, basically told Dr. Brown he's got to sit down while they investigate. They tried to hire a BS law firm out of Arizona that specializes in protecting the perpetrator. The victim said no. So they settled on Firefly, who did the Biblicate report. When a Firefly report took like 3 months, basically, to investigate 25 years. Not bad at all. But the result was guilty. The result was corroborating everything the victim said. And the terminology used was the sexually abusive misconduct on Dr. Brown's part. So, because Dr. Brown is a critical part of the charismatical machine, they want to get him back to work as soon as possible. So the board then commissioned an elder accountability team, and one of the board members was on it, wink, wink, and their job was apparently to completely dispute the Firefly report while pretending to care about women, but not really. So the first thing they had to do was they had to deal with that pesky sexually abusive misconduct charge. So they turned that into a leadership oopsie. They claimed Firefly went beyond the technical definition. But I've covered that on previous videos. The long and the short of it is the Firefly investigators did not want to use the traditional use of the term sexually abusive misconduct would include some kind of battery. And nobody was making any accusations that Dr. Brown beat his victims. So instead, they looked at things like manipulation, coercion, things that really apply more to a spiritual leadership position. And to that, the elder accountability team said no. This is just the leadership oopsie. And at the end of it all, Dr. Brown should go back to ministry. And now what that's doing is it's giving Dr. Brown his talking point. So he's going to say, elder accountability team, no discussion of Firefly report. He's been portraying himself as the victim, no mention of the actual victims. He tried this, I'm just going back into ministry shtick, and it didn't work. Too many people were still upset. So he did a 3.5-hour interview with Heather Shot. Well, he was on for 2.5 hours of Mercy Culture Church. where he's an apostolic elder. It's like none of these people have any clue of the concept of conflict of interest. And this love fest for 2.5 hours was basically just, and it was obviously organized by Dr. Brown. He sent them clips ahead of time. He disclosed very private emails between him and Sarah, including one where Sarah indicated that she had suffered multiple miscarriages. Just really disgusting things that Dr. Brown was like airing out in public for the sake of protecting his ministry. So with that as the backdrop, we come to Kara News out of Texas and this report, which we will try to go through, and hopefully it'll serve as a good summary point as well. And there were just some absurdly stupid quotes that needed to be addressed. Hang on a second. Okay. Leaders of Fort Worth-based megachurch Mercy Culture says they will stand with Elder Michael Brown, joining a group of religious leaders publicly rejecting a recent third-party investigation concluding Brown engaged in sexually abusive misconduct in the early 2000s. That group of religious leaders is the Elder Accountability Team. There was only 4 of them. One of them was on the board, on Michael Brown's board. So Brown, 70, is the founder of the Line of Fire, Dr. Brown Ministries, Inc., a North Carolina-based ministry. Describes the author and speaker as the world's foremost Messianic Jewish apologist. Fine. He's also associated with Mercy Culture Church, which has earned headlines for its outspoken political involvement and a 100-bed shelter for human trafficking survivors, a project long anticipated by congregants and opposed by hundreds of neighbors that earned Fort Worth City Council approval in December. So it's a shame that the Fort Worth Council has gone against what the neighbors have wanted, but this story reveals the carnality of Mercy Culture Church. It should be called No Mercy Culture Church because they had no mercy for their neighbors. They wanted to build this 100-bed shelter. The people who lived in the neighborhood did not want it built in their neighborhood. Can you imagine why, if you're a homeowner? And they took them to court, and throughout the process, Landon Heathershot basically tarred and feathered them, called them demons, witches, warlocks, claimed they were conducting seances. Just absolutely disgusting treatment of their neighbors. Brown is listed as an apostolic elder on Mercy Culture's website and has preached to congregants across Texas several times since the church opened in 2019. For the past 4 months, Brown has faced sexual misconduct allegations involving 2 adult women in his ministries more than 20 years ago. The time is not relevant if you understand victimology, if you understand why people don't come forward. Sarah herself admits it took her 10 years to even realize she was a victim. There's shame, there's guilt, there's the not wanting to challenge somebody who's so well known, who's powerful, and you have no power. He's accused of holding hands, kissing, and slapping the buttocks of a member of the fire school ministry he founded. He also acknowledged an inappropriate relationship with a married woman in his congregation, according to an outside investigation. I can't stand, and I use the term too, but inappropriate relationship is a whitewash. He had a sexual relationship with a married woman that they engaged in sexual discussion in emails, what amounted to phone sex. And the only reason why I didn't go further is she stopped and would not meet with him when he wanted to meet. I just think that's a little more than inappropriate. Yeah. The allegations were first published in December by the Roy's Report, a Christian media outlet, which publicized abuse allegations against leaders of Tarrant County-based Gateway Church and Daystar Television Network. Brown said in December 2 statement, his actions were certainly foolish and irresponsible, but neither sexual or amorous in any way. Anyway. So, is there a new form of non-amorous phone sex I'm unaware of? And this kind of stuff is not challenged enough. Okay? Yes, it's foolish, and yes, it was irresponsible, but it's actually abusive. In both instances, he is the person in a position of power. He is in a position of spiritual authority. This is the person they looked up to. In many ways, Sarah deified him. He was a god in that charismaniacal circle, especially coming out of Brownsville. He stepped away from public appearances that month at the request of the Line of Fire board, which hired outside firm Firefly to conduct an independent investigation in January. Conclusions of Firefly's report, first released by Brown's ministry April 12th. I just want to briefly, this report's correct. Firefly started conducting an investigation in January. In the interview, Brown made it a point to say how long and arduous the 7 months were that he was not allowed to do anything. His whole life was just turned upside down, and he thought that he'd be back at work in January. Why would you think he would be back at work in January if Firefly was not even hired to start the investigation until January? Some, like Mercy Culture, have defended Brown, while others say he failed to admit or apologize for his conduct years ago. While the Firefly report described Brown's actions as sexually abusive misconduct, a group of prominent Christian leaders asked by Brown's ministry to review the report said it overreaches beyond its intended boundaries. Absolute nonsense. They characterized Brown's behavior as moral indiscretions and leadership misconduct. Would you want to send your daughter, 19-year-old daughter, to a ministry school led by somebody engaged in these activities? Would you consider them just merely moral indiscretions and leadership misconduct? Because I really think that's kind of underselling. Brown has been in the lives of Mercy Culture lead pastors Landon and Heather Schott for many years. The church wrote in a 2021 Facebook post in February before the initial investigation release. Landon Schott led a standing ovation for Brown during a Mercy Culture conference, calling out the partnership between churches and what he termed cancel culture. Shut up. And being the accuser of the brethren, another set of verses Landon Schott doesn't understand. This has been an absolute assassination on his reputation, Landon Schott told conference attendees. This has been an absolute assassination on his reputation. In order for that statement to be true, both victims are lying. Both victims are lying, and all of the ancillary witnesses are lying. And the witnesses themselves have dropped a 137-page response. They all have managed to gather together to bring up something from 25 years ago to attack Dr. Brown. That takes a certain level of stupid that I didn't even think Landon Schott could attain. He says, Dr. Brown, we honor you, we celebrate you. It's a presence-driven church. It's not a presence, well, maybe, but it's not God's presence. And a community of pastors is behind you. Mercy Culture released an April 29th statement in support of Brown, referring to his actions as a lapse in judgment and propriety by Dr. Brown, which he has addressed. No, he hasn't, Landon, and you know he hasn't. What he's done is he's obfuscated. He's tried to cover it up. He's tried to downplay it at every single turn. Statement warns Congress to be aware of the spirit of Jezebel that weaponizes accusation. Whatever, dude. I'm so tired of charismaniacal leaders who don't bother to understand Scripture, who don't bother to understand what the Bible says. There's not a spirit of Jezebel making accusation. We're in this position because of one person, and it ain't Jezebel. It's Dr. Brown. Shock goes on. They're not preserving righteousness, they're spreading division. According to Romans, Landon, see if you own the Bible, you might understand this. According to Romans, division is brought into the body of Christ through false teaching, not through those who point it out. He goes on, they're not restoring the church, they're attempting to tear it down. Not true. Not true. In fact, again, what tears it down is division. Division is false teaching. So, we're trying to tear down the apostate church. We're trying to tear down the church that thinks that it's perfectly normal for a 45-year-old man to be playfully smacking a 19-year-old's butt. And the excuse being, well, I think she's my daughter. Mercy Culture Church will continue to walk in honor, truth, and fear of the Lord, will not bow to unbiblical cancel culture. Whatever. This is not cancel culture. Stop using tired old political terms. It's not surprising because Len is also a MAGA pastor. And obviously they have no fear of the Lord because you're going to answer for it, Landon and Heather. You're going to stand before Christ and you're going to have to try to answer for that 3.5 hour interview. The church deleted its initial statement on social media before republishing it with additional comments about how the church has supported survivors of abuse and stating Brown was not afforded biblical process. Okay, so let's break that down. It doesn't matter if in the past you did X, if now in the present you're doing Y and they go against each other. There's a word for that. It's called hypocrisy. And I point this out throughout the 5 videos during the interview. Heather Shot has created this public persona as being the champion for female victims. Except for these two. These two don't count. In that interview, she on the panel, she had a guy whose entire ministry career is dealing with victims of abuse. Except for these two, they don't count. And the reason why they don't count is because Dr. Brown is because he's their apostolic elder, and they need to protect that. Because do you know who else founded this church for them? Robert Morris. So this is who they've got backing them. The guy who had the 4-year sexual relationship of abuse with a 12-year-old, and the guy who, played footsie with the 19-year-old employee sheep, and had phone sex with a married woman. At the same time, he was berating his young students about what kind of panties they were allowed to wear. That's who created, supported, and stands with Mercy Culture Church. So I understand why they lost Morris. There's nothing they can do about that. But if they lose Brown on top of it, and not afford a biblical process, we'll get to that in a second. The debate comes as Justice Reform, a nonprofit led by Heather Shot, that the couple describes as a house division of Mercy Culture, is expected to break ground on its Justice Residences shelter on May 9th. So sad that they prevailed. We will also defend we will always defend those preyed upon. Really? How can you make that statement after defending Dr. Brown in a 2.5 hour interview? How can you defend? How can you make the statement? You're not defending the victims. You're calling them liars. However, defending victims must never become an excuse to falsely accuse the righteous. The righteous. That's how Mercy Culture, Land, and Heather Shot have defined Dr. Michael Brown. He, in this scenario, is the righteous. Mind you, he's not disagreed with any of the stories. He just sanitizes them. He tries to make them sound like, well, you weren't there and I was, and she was just a daughter, so it was okay that I was touching her butt. Or, well, me and the married woman, we had an indiscretion. But there was nothing amorous or sexual about it. Well, I mean, except for the phone sex, of course. Both justice and mercy must be rooted in biblical truth, not emotion, outrage, social media mobs, or cancel culture. Whatever, dude. In response to questions about Brown and his future involvement with the church, Katie Mendoza said, "We're not responding to any media requests." In the early 2000s, Brown founded the Fire School of Ministry in Florida before relocating it to North Carolina in 2003. Brown's accused of having an inappropriate relationship in 2001, 2002 with Sarah Monk, and a then 20-year-old member of the school, who Brown described as being like a daughter to him. In the report, Firefly report, Monk alleges the two held hands on multiple occasions. She would sit on his lap, and later alleged Brown would also kiss her on the neck, head, mouth, and occasionally slap her buttocks. In a non-amorous way. The report also concluded Brown had a second inappropriate relationship with a married woman in his congregation. That woman is now deceased. After reviewing evidence, conducting interviews, analyzing the situation, the investigation concluded Brown's actions toward the two females were inappropriate, unacceptable for his leadership position within the ministry. And that's the key point, too. They're not peers. The investigation reads, such conduct violated the ethical standards expected of someone in his role, undermined the trust and integrity essential to leadership within the church community. Over the past 25 years, Brown deliberately deflected questions about allegations of sexual misconduct, the Firefly investigation wrote. Citing instances when ministry leaders tried to confront Brown, noting that he reiterated that there was no evidence to support such claims, reassured him nothing inappropriate had ever happened. This pattern of deflection appears to be a calculated effort to evade accountability, suppress the allegations to protect his ministry's reputation, the Firefly investigation found. So let's not lose sight of it, because that's the point. This isn't just like something that randomly came up after 25 years. It was brought up over and over again, and every time the pattern of deflection appears to be a calculated effort to evade accountability, suppress the allegations, and protect the ministry. The findings have since faced criticism by a group of religious leaders who formed the Elder Accountability Team, which was invited by the Line of Fire's board to review and respond to the investigation and offer recommendations to Brown and his ministry. The Line of Fire representatives did not respond to a request for comment. In their 27-page report released on April 28th, the team described Brown's behavior as leadership misconduct rather than sexually abusive misconduct. We talked about that. Arguing that Firefly's label overreaches beyond extending its boundaries, which it does not. The elders also described Brown's behavior with the married woman as a moral indiscretion. Listen, if that's where we're at in modern churchianity, that married pastors who engage in phone sex and try to meet with that woman for an obvious purpose of having an affair are merely having a moral indiscretion, then I think you're starting to understand why 40 million people have left the church in the last 25 years. Because even the world realizes that's not just a moral indiscretion. His actions in these instances during this time periods reflect a lapse in wisdom and good judgment. No kidding. The group said Firefly left out Brown's rebuttal statements in the report or the testimony of his wife, Nancy Brown. They also said the Line of Fire leadership should have been officially contacted to seek a proper Matthew 18 response 5 years ago when the allegations were circulated among the ministry's alumni rather than being carried by judgment and sentencing by a jury on social media. So this is another part of the nonsense that they're trying to throw out there. First of all, it's an investigation into Brown. We're already aware Dr. Brown has denied key elements of it. There was nothing to be gleaned from just watch the interview with Heather Shaw. Everybody's well aware that Michael Brown thinks that Michael Brown is the only victim here. Number one. Number two, his wife's testimony has no relevance. She wasn't there for any of it. All she saw was whatever Dr. Brown, whatever her husband told her. And there's a reason why, even within law, a wife is not compelled to testify against her husband. There is no credibility. But the bigger part of this problem is this continual abuse of Matthew 18. So several years ago, when other folks in the ministry, alumni, and people who knew Dr. Brown for years, and they were trying to talk Dr. Brown about it or whatever, the notion that they would somehow biblically have to go to the Line of Fire board is ridiculous. That is not what Matthew 18 is about, okay? Matthew 18 is if me and you are in a church and we're peers and you do something, I should you do something against me, you sin against me. I should try to win you back as my brother or sister in Christ. If you, however, are in the position of spiritual authority, if you're the pastor and you sin against me, it is not my responsibility to now have to go back to my perpetrator. And what? This is what, read the Firefly report on Bicklegate. This is what was happening at IHOP left and right. 16 other people besides Mike Bickle engaged in sexually abusive conduct. And in nearly every turn, the IHOP culture forced the victim to meet with the perpetrator, and the perpetrator said, "My bad," and then IHOP instructed the victim, "Well, you got to forgive him according to the Bible, and don't you tell your parents anything." That's not what Matthew 18 is for. The process is unbiblical and causes irreparable damage to Brown's credibility and ministry, the team wrote, right? So the Firefly report is to investigate Brown's behavior against the victims. The elder accountability team is to parse it out to get Dr. Brown back into ministry. But you can't do that without dismissing the victims and making the only victim Dr. Brown. So because of this bogus, didn't seek a proper Matthew 18 process, they're claiming it was unbiblical and it irreparably damaged Dr. Brown's credibility. Not having the phone sex with the woman, that didn't damage his credibility. Not trying to meet with her twice to have an affair, that didn't damage her credibility. Not smacking the 19-year-old on her butt, that didn't damage her credibility. No. 25 years later, the fact that some people chose to air out this situation in public, because at every turn in private, he tried to squash it. That's what damages credibility. The Elder Accountability Group said Brown and his wife met with Monk to apologize for his inappropriate actions towards her. Monk denies the meeting ever took place. The Elder Group recommended Brown or his ministry offer cover reasonable counseling expenses for Monk, engage in counseling himself, and be allowed to return to ministry. It's just insulting. Okay. Dr. Brown says, "Oh, we met with her and apologized." The victim's like, "No, you didn't." Brown stated in December that he and his wife had a familial sort of relationship with Monk and viewed his behavior toward her as normal within family relationships. Listen, if you're a middle-aged man and you're in the habit of playfully smacking your 19-year-old daughter on the butt, I would suggest that you seek some counseling. It's not a normal part of family dynamics. I'm sorry. After Monk confronted Brown and his wife in 2002 about the interactions, he claims he apologized and said, to his knowledge, Monk wanted to move forward in peace. Unfortunately, when Nancy and I learned through Roy's report that there was an offense toward me in this woman's heart, we were not allowed, once again, I'm the victim, we're not allowed to follow the mandate of Jesus in Matthew 5, 23, 26, but only given the option of offering a response to the article if it released online. What happened to biblical process, Brown wrote, because Brown's the victim. Well, let's go see. Matthew 5. You have heard it said that you shall not murder. Whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. Whoever says you fool will be liable to hell's of fire. So if you are offering your gift at the altar, and remember there that there's a brother that has something against you, leave your gift at the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Fantastic verse that has absolutely nothing to do with what to do when a person in spiritual authority abuses you. This is not merely you remembering when you're bringing your gift to the altar that a brother or sister has some kind of offense against you. It's such a ridiculously absurd, and Dr. Brown knows better. He's a theologian. He knows Matthew 5, 23 to 26 is not the biblical process for confronting leaders who have sexually abused you. He has to know that. He's too smart not to. Debate over the seriousness of the allegations, whether Brown should be allowed to return to ministry roles, divided leaders in Christian Messianic Jewish circles. Several leaders have called for the elder report to be retracted, and it should be. Meanwhile, Brown remains an apostolic elder in Mercy Culture shortly after the investigation into the allegations began. Brown appeared on the church platforms as a guest on Heather Schott Holy Disruption podcast. The December 4th episode discussed the topic of women in ministry and the role of men in supporting women and the dangers of reactionary, abusive, patriarchal system, the transformational power of obeying God regardless of societal barriers. The long and short of that is a feminist view of Christianity that does not comport with Scripture whatsoever. Apostolic elders like Brown are to govern the vision of the church by establishing policies that provide philosophical boundaries for church life, uphold biblical standards, and discipline for behavior among church members, and individually demonstrate a model for ministry of godly living in the Gateway Church model, according to its website. So let's just take the Gateway Church model thing out for a second and just say that maybe they want to update their website. Just saying, that maybe the Gateway Church model of abusive tithing teaching mixed in with abusing 12-year-olds, maybe that's not the best model to be basing your church on. Just saying. But the first part of it was actually the more stupid part. Apostolic elders, which is what Mike Brown is to Mercy Culture, govern the vision of the church by establishing policies that provide philosophical boundaries for church life and uphold biblical standards. So exactly what part of the biblical standard? I don't remember the Bible teaching us to try to deflect and distract and lie, to call the people that we victimized liars, which Dr. Brown now has essentially done, and the shots have certainly done. Demonstrate a model for ministry and godly living. This is why, Dr. Brown, I've said all along, you can't just go back. You can't just walk back in and say, and claim, I'm the voice of moral clarity or sanity or whatever the heck you think you are. You cannot demonstrate a model for ministry and godly living. And that's the problem. Gateway, which planted Mercy Culture Church 6 years ago. So the guy who abused the 12-year-old is the one who planted Mercy Culture Church, commissioned the shots, and then they brought Mike Brown in, Dr. Michael Brown in, to be an apostolic elder, and everybody was one big happy confab and family. And now, a few years later, look what God has revealed. Gateway, which planted Mercy Culture 6 years ago, has been at the center of a child sexual abuse scandal involving its founder, Robert Morris, since June 2024. Morris is pleading not guilty to 5 counts of lewd or indecent acts with a minor in Oklahoma, where initial hearing is set for May 9th, which obviously means it happened already. Mercy Culture Church is elder-governed, staff-managed, and congregationally owned, according to the website. Brown recently returned to Mercy Culture. Landon Shaw just wrote that it's powerful having him back from sabbatical. You mean from being forced to stand down while they investigated him? Sabbatical. The Apostle Paul taught the elders are to be given double honor and triple defense. 1 Timothy 5, 17 through 19. Shot shared alongside photos of him and Brown. I refuse to participate in cancel culture. I will only lead a mercy culture. Well, except for the neighbors. Yeah, they're not. I have no mercy for them. Except for anybody who dares to go against us, I won't have any mercy for them. Except for the victims of Dr. Mike Brown, I won't have any mercy for them. You don't believe in a mercy culture, Landon. You believe in a Landon culture. But briefly, 1 Timothy 5, because it strikes me when he's triple defense, I was like, I don't remember that. Let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor. So the predicate is they have to rule well. When that elder is having phone sex with a married woman, he's not ruling well. When he's grooming a 19-year-old who's his employee, I might add, by cuddling and kissing and playfully smacking on the butt, he's not ruling well. Especially those who labor preaching, teaching, for Scripture says, you shall not muzzle an ox when it treads out the grain. The laborer deserves his wages. Do not admit a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, which is why he said triple defense. The problem Landon has is there's more than 2 or 3 witnesses in this story. There's 2 direct witnesses, people who are physically in the room, and then there's a host of ancillary witnesses that all corroborate the story of the two. So you got your triple defense, and it don't matter. The Firefly report still said guilty of sexual abuse. Yeah, and I know the board members cooked up EAT there, said, oh, no, just a leadership oopsie. We know what happened. And that there's the summary. And I've said all along, it's sad that we even have to discuss this. Continue to discuss this, but Dr. Brown is back in full swing. He's just acting like none of this ever happened. That's the hubris and the arrogance and smarminess of it all. It's bad enough that you pay lip service to victims, or in Dr. Brown's case, you don't even mention them at all. That you're the victim, and he went on and did this 2.5 hour interview, and then basically said, "I'm done." He shuts out all dissent on his social media. So if you go read any of his social media posts, what follows are just hundreds and hundreds of comments of people gushing about how great Dr. Michael Brown is. And if you pop on there at all and just say, hey, Doc, what about those victims? You'll be gone. You'll be labeled divisive. Your comment will be removed, and then you'll be banned. You'll be blocked. He's not the only one who does that, but I know that. I know that there's people who I know who are blocked. Not for saying anything rude, just for saying the truth. But the truth is that Dr. Brown's version of things is not the truth. He's cooked up this narrative, and he gamed a system that he controlled. The leader of his board paid $40,000 to an investigative unit that determined he was sexually abusive. So then he turned around and created an elder accountability team, placed himself on it, and lo and behold, we disagree with the $40,000 report that we commissioned. Get back to work. Oh, but we really care about all victims. We do. We our thoughts and prayers go out to them. Nobody should have to go through that. Well, except for these two people, they had to go through it. It is so obviously transparent. It's so sad. Please leave your comments. I try to get back to everybody. As the story unfolds, we'll try to keep covering it. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a like. All that fun stuff. Thanks for stopping by. Test everything and hold fast.